My name's Artin Rodriguez. As Gordon said, I'm a solutions consultant here at AppZen. And just a little bit of history, I've been here since 2022, prior actually working at a company that a lot of you might know, SAP Concur. I was there for about 8 years as a principal consultant. So I am very intimate with expense reporting, invoicing, credit card transactions, everything. So I've been around the block for about 10 years now, and so I really look forward to kind of showcasing what we're going over today. And really the reason I jumped over to AppZen is because of the innovations that we're able to make in the artificial intelligence space. So a lot of the things that I get to talk about today are exactly the reason I jumped over to AppZen. I'm going to be showing all of you today some of the things that none of you have seen yet, the things that are on our roadmap that are going to make your lives so much easier in the finance department. So I'm really thrilled to be sharing all of this with you. Now, if I could just get a quick show of hands, how many expense audit customers do I have in the room today? Okay, all right. What about accounts payable? All right. What about nothing? Do I have any prospects in here? Okay, great. That's awesome. So we're going to turn you today. And any card audit or spend audit customers? Okay, great. So I'm going to move on to my next slide. Thank you for that. I just had that question because I'm going to want to know who I get to call out on when I have some questions for you all. So just going into this, I'm going to kind of preface this with Mastermind. Who here doesn't know what Mastermind is? Raise your hand. Okay, you're not a customer. Are you a customer? Okay, what company do you work for? And find out who his client success manager is. All right, we're going to need to have that conversation. Everyone here should know what Mastermind is because it is the underlying platform that AppZen is built on. So Mastermind is why your expense reports are getting flagged as high, medium, and low risk. Mastermind is the tool that actually looks over all of the receipts. It's the tool for those of you that are in the invoice processing space, is able to capture all of the information on those invoices and extract it and do a 2- and 3-way match and do your general ledger coding. On the card audit side, it's the tool that's able to actually look at your level 2 and level 3 data and find out if someone's purchased cigarettes at a gas station. All right, and the inbox, it's the tool that allows you to actually see exactly what the status of an invoice is without having to copy and paste that into your ERP and find out the status. So for those, that's just kind of giving you an overview of what Mastermind is. Again, I'm going to talk to your client success manager as soon as I find out who that is. What's your name? Yeah. Okay. They're protecting you guys over there. I see you. Okay, so Mastermind is the tool that gives you all the information you need to make the decisions that you need to make to save yourselves time and money, right? We call those SOPs, right? What are the standard operating procedures that you go through when AppZen finds out that there was a problem? So on expense reports, let's see, I'm going to call on someone. Raise your hand if you're an expense auditing client here. Okay, you. Oh, okay, so when an expense report comes in and we flag it as high risk because it's a duplicate, what are your standard operating procedures?
So I have 2 different stationary emails that I email to my manager because we've decided that our upper auditors say we need somebody besides me to look at something that's a duplicate just to verify it.
Sure.
So I take a screenshot of the 2 receipts, and then one of them says duplicate across reports or receipts across report, the expense one or whatever, and I always go into Concur. I open up the expense report, I look at it to say, no, this one's really from July and this one's from June. They're 2 separate receipts. This is not a duplicate, it's a false thing. Or, yes, this is a duplicate, and I automatically reject it. I don't even send it to my manager.
Got it. Does that sound familiar to everyone in here? Now, it might not sound familiar because standard operating procedures are different for every single customer, right? Which is why it's so difficult for artificial intelligence to be able to automate that. So everyone has a different standard operating procedure on duplicate spend, on unauthorized spend, on invoices that are missing certain information, on credit card transactions, on inboxes. So what we want to do is take those standard operating procedures that you have that are very specific to you and help you identify how to automate that by giving you one of our newest tools. So what we've done is we've taken the power of Mastermind and we've combined it with what is a standard operating procedure potential for you, and we're mushing that together and doing something called DIY. So a lot of times, when you have these situations where you run into, hey, this is happening pretty consistently, I wonder if AppZen can help. You might contact your client success manager, you might contact support, and they might say, yeah, we could do a custom model for that. And it'll take X amount of days and we'll get that done, and then we'll have that customization built for you. We're taking that and we're putting the power of that in your hands. How many of you are familiar with audit rules in Expense? Right? So for those of you that are familiar with these are like convoluted rules in Concur that you have to go through and like basically build out if-and statements that get really complicated because there's parentheses and brackets and plus signs, and it's so difficult to create them. We've actually taken that kind of process and we put the power into AppZen and we made it way easier, right? So how many of you guys are do-it-yourselfers at home? Like you redo your bathroom, and then, when you sell your home, the person that buys it's like, well, that was an idea. Well, we've actually made that a lot easier, so that won't be the situation if a new admin comes along. They'll look at this and they'll be like, wow, that looks really easy. And now all those standard operating procedures that you had, you can build directly yourselves. So, that's the wrong slide. I'm going to go back. Now, I'm going to jump in. This is where I get to actually show it to you. So this is the fun part. You all ready to see this? Okay, so I have a few things that I'm going to start with. First thing is the inbox. Now, is everyone familiar with the inbox? Who doesn't know what the inbox is? All right, client success, AEs, well done. Everyone's familiar. Okay, so the AppZen inbox is, of course, the tool that we're plugging our tool directly into your AP inboxes. We're able to understand and categorize all of the different types of emails. Now, the challenge is you still need to make decisions on what happens when those get categorized. Right? Now, you can contact us and you could say, we want this to happen. Well, now, with DIY, you're able to look at these different categories that we've placed, and you can see over here in my sidebar, suppliers asking for a bank account change. Or over here, the supplier is asking for a W-9, or this is a W-9. Now, in this process, let's an invoice customer, why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do when you receive a W-9? Anyone? I'm going to just call on someone if I don't get an answer. Over here. Do you handle accounts payable? Okay, so when someone emails in a W-9, what's your procedure? Okay. Okay. Got it. All right, so you have a lot of steps that take place. Do you have to send it over to different people to manage any of those checks, or is that just? Okay. And some of you might have other teams that manage this, so they get sent over. And maybe there's two teams, or maybe you want to forward the email to one team and then copy someone else. Now, you're going to be able to do all of that yourself. Introducing automations. This is the DIY that we're talking about. And I'm going to go through one of each of these for each of the products, starting with the inbox. So you just saw a W-9 email come in. You can see over here, when an email is labeled, and if a label is W-9, and if the entity is Feel Good USA, or whatever the name of your company is, then forward the email to the vendor master team. Let's look how easy this is to build. So I'm going to click in, and here's where you get to create your automation framework. You can see over here, when an email, invoice, or expense is labeled or is received, you can see over here is labeled or has an AppZen status and all of the different statuses of the emails. So you get to choose what steps, and you get to continue to add additional variables. So in this case, I added entity and Feel Good USA. Maybe you don't necessarily need that entity name, so you can come over here and trash that. But once you create all of those different variables, then you create the action that you're going to take. So over here, you could say forward the email. You can say send an email. And if you chose send an email, and I'll show this to you in a future automation, If you send an email, you get to have a template for exactly what you want to have it say to whoever you need it to go to. And then as you can see over here, it doesn't just have to go to one person. You can carbon copy, you can blind carbon copy additional folks. So a lot of different use cases here beyond just W-9. Like what if it's a miscellaneous email, you don't know what it's for and it needs to go to someone that can figure that out. You can have it sent over to them. You're even gonna be able to automate this based on the sender. So there's a lot of different variables and steps that you can take in this. I have a question over here.
My question is, once you do all that, when you set that up, can that stay in place? So once you have another scenario like that, it automatically go through that channel like that? Or is that just set up every time you have that request?
So you can create as many of these as you want. So in this case, it's specifically for W-9. You hit save, and then you can, I don't know, is Ganesh in here? Ganesh, is there a way to duplicate a automation and then change the parameters a little bit? So there's that. So if you see an automation that you see working for one, like for a W-9, but you also want that same automation for a bank account change, then you can just duplicate it and then change the label to a bank account request change. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Well, I kind of have an interpretation of her question. So
Sure.
I think that if she might have been saying that if you always have a W-9 come in, can it automatically flow to that workflow of what you just said instead of every time she would have to decision it to say what workflow?
Oh yeah, this is set in place. Thank you for asking that question.
I mean, I was trying
Right.
to figure out like.
You're doing my job. You know, I need you up here with me. Can you come join me, please? We have very comfortable chairs. Thank you for clarifying. So yes, when we add these in, it's set permanently. So anytime a W-9 comes in, it'll automatically go through this workflow. You don't need to do this every single time. All right, but that's a good call out. That would be way too many clicks. That wouldn't be Mastermind. That wouldn't be standard operating procedure. We're trying to help you. So, okay, great question. Appreciate it. Any other questions? You got one over here?
So, like, let's say this is a new automation. I just hit save. Is it now like going forward as new emails come in and get labeled, it will start running? It's not like all the historical ones that are in your inbox that got labeled. It will run this now.
It's not retroactive. It doesn't go back to your historical emails. It'll go for anything from the point of that being turned on forward. Unless I'm mistaken on that, Ganesh. Never mind. You keep doing you. No. I had some other questions. I want to make sure that I'm getting clear. Right over here.
How do you, as you build these, how do you actually make sure that they're having the desired outcome? Because I can see where you think you're writing the right thing, but maybe you don't quite use the right words.
Right, right. Do we have a way of testing these before we actually go active with them, Ganesh?
So there is, you have a test environment, so you can test it there. So what we provide is for every customer, there is a UAT environment that you can load up, where you'll be able to test these automations, and then you can deploy it.
To deploy them, is it like you hit a button, or are you going and copy pasting all that in?
So the enable toggle button that you see, right? So by default there'll be a number of seeded automations that you will get, and then on top of that, if you have customized automations,
I think what he means is if they build it in the test environment, will they have to rebuild it in the production environment? Okay.
So right now there is no migration available, but maybe in the future.
But to test a new automation, you could just like dummy an email, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really easy to turn on and off. Yeah. You got it.
So is that information being read from the subject line, or is it fully reading any information asking for a W-9 or bank account information within that entire email?
So in this case, it's because there was an attachment of a W-9. But if the subject says XYZ, and you want anytime that subject line comes in to do a certain automation, we'll also be able to build that kind of functionality.
So it actually reads the attachment.
So the way
Yeah.
you identify that
Okay.
Yeah.
is through our labeling categorization model, right? Where any incoming email, we have already categorized it as an invoice email or a W-9 email. So
All right. Any other questions on this? Okay. Let's move over to the, did I hear one? Okay, fire away. Well, it'll have both. Yeah, so if you have a W-9 and an invoice and a random document, it'll get tagged with invoice, W-9, and other document or miscellaneous. You got it. Yeah, so anytime those labels come in, and you can add additional context. So if email has invoice and email has W-9 and email is from this vendor, forward to, Sharon or something like that, so you have those options. Yeah. All right. So moving along. Okay, so now we've talked about the inbox. So now let's talk about accounts payable, right? Because there's a lot of actions that need to be taken in your standard operating procedure when it comes to accounts payable. Are all of you familiar with our autonomous accounts payable tool? For those of you that are expense audit only, anyone unfamiliar with autonomous AP? And your current customers?
For the expense side.
Okay, so what company are you? And jot this down over there. Jot this down over there. Okay. Okay, well, we'll absolutely teach you more. And so in this space, we ingest, just so you're familiar, we ingest autonomously invoices. We take all of the information that you would need extracted. We place it into the correct forms and fields so that when it syncs over to your financial system, it's a full record without you having to do any manual intervention. So we can talk a little bit further about that. If you want to come have a demo of it later, come find me. I'm happy to do so. All right. Okay, so in the workbench, I'm going to open up an invoice that has a field missing, all right? And typically when you have these fields missing, and I'm going to ask one of the accounts payable customers over here what their process would be, and then I'll show you how that's going to work with the, there it is. Here's my invoice. So in this case, and this can happen at the inbox level. This is what's really incredible about this. So if you're using both our inbox and you're using our accounts payable tool, this invoice came in, and again, for those of you that don't know, this extracted all of the information from the invoice, placed it into the correct forms and fields over here on the right. Now, what you see is this is a purchase order related invoice, right? In this case, I know that this vendor always requires a purchase order. Now, how often are we getting, vendors that forget their PO number on that? And it happens all the time, according to all the customers that I've worked with. So you now need to take steps. We need to fire off an exception. You might have to email the vendor. You might have to send it back to the purchaser. You might have to go into your ERP system and find out what the actual purchase order is, so then you can apply it. Well, now you don't have to do all of those because you can do a DIY. All right, so there's no purchase order number. I don't want to have to go searching for it. I want to train better behaviors from my vendor. So instead of doing anything myself, if this happens, we come over here and we return it to the vendor. When an invoice in the system is processed, and if the PO policy is PO backed and the PO number doesn't exist, send an email using an email template and send it to the vendor's primary contact, and then reject the invoice. So now you don't have to take any steps on this because they didn't do what they were supposed to do to set you up for success on that invoice. So let's take a look at what that looks like. When the invoice is PO backed or non-PO backed, as you can imagine, there's other reasons that you would want to send these back for non-PO. And the PO number does not exist, or even if there's a specific PO number that you want to create or a specific string that you want to create an automation for, then send an email, forward an email, or do both, because you can add additional context to this. So you can send an email to the vendor. You can also forward this email, so on and so forth. And then over here, you can say, hey, vendor, you forgot the PO number. Can you please, in the future, ensure that you're putting the PO number on this? Otherwise, you're not going to get paid on time. That'll really get them to do it quickly. And you can see over here who you're going to send it to, the supplier, and you can also, again, carbon copy someone on the AP team if you need to. So all of that happens, and then down over here, and then also reject or void the invoice. So now if you go into the Autonomous Accounts Payable workbench, all of these steps have already been taken, so no action is necessary from you. No PO number, no action required from you until they resend the invoice with the PO number on it, and it automatically matches, processes autonomously.
Does it update that rejection? Like, do you have a list of the rejected invoices because of non-PO, and then when it does come through with a PO, does it update that and say, hey, it took 7 days for them to...
Oh, good question. Yeah, so you're saying like in the work, well, so first of all, in the workbench, you will see all of the, all of the statuses of all the different invoices. So you'll see anything that has been rejected over here in the status area. Now, what you're asking is if it's been rejected, can we track like how long it has taken them to resend that?
So it's not matching the invoice number, and then basically check off that this is no longer rejected.
Because this is no, so it will be a new transaction on the workbench, right? So the moment a transaction gets rejected on the workbench, that means that's the end of life cycle for that transaction unless you decide to reopen it. Whereas in your case, since you sent it back to the supplier and you're asking the supplier to resubmit it, a new email comes in from the supplier, and that new email gets ingested as a new transaction in the workbench.
So follow-up question for that. And just so everyone knows, that's Ganesh. He's one of the smartest men I know. He actually leads our product team, and he knows the answers to all these questions. But on that question, if it does get rejected and they do send a new invoice and it has the same invoice number and the same amount, but the only difference is it has a PO number, will it get flagged as a duplicate? It won't. Okay.
Oh, I have a quick question on that. So can we run can someone, I mean, I don't have this, but if I did have it, could I run a report saying during this time period what was rejected?
Yes.
So that I can match with what's been resubmitted?
Yes.
So that I know what's still left out there hanging in the cloud or whatever?
Totally.
Okay. So it's trackable, basically.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. That's great.
For you?
Yeah, similar thought is if you have the vendor sending in the invoices and it's rejected and they don't action it, there's a real risk there that the vendor's going to say you're delinquent and we're putting you on hold.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think just from a product development perspective, to have some sort of a indicator of those risks and things here, what you're talking about is basically a manual process, right?
Right.
You would run this report, but then you have to manually do the consolidation of data with the same,
Right.
characteristics. But I think that is a real risk where the vendor sends it in, I sent it, we send it back, they're like, poo-poo you.
Yeah.
And then next thing I know, I'm getting phone calls going,
You owe us.
no, not you owe us, but we put you on hold.
We cut off your insurance.
Yeah. Very real life thing that happens, right? So just from a product development perspective, I think there's certain risks associated with this, especially as you make things automated and take the human element out. You're not necessarily going to know the magnitude and quantity of these types of things happening. Yeah.
And I kind of see where automations framework can help you there as well, right? So similar to what Artin was showing you, you can create an automation that basically says, hey, if the invoice is in rejected status from this supplier, and the supplier has not sent another invoice for you in 15 days, then send a reminder to the supplier saying, hey, I'm still waiting for this.
Okay, so you would do another do-yourself thing, and it's smarter.
I'm just thinking out loud,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm sure, because you have all the ingredients to make up that automation, right?
You may have critical suppliers that you want to do that with.
Yeah.
And then maybe the tail supplies where it's a one-off invoice, that's not quite right. And so really the onus, you responded, the onus is on the supplier. But of course, with critical suppliers, you may want to treat it differently.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, the onus is on the supplier, but when they cut you off, they don't care, right? So I think that's a risk management perspective.
Yeah, great.
Question over here?
Thanks to your question about the duplicate invoice. What
So when we look for duplicates, two things that we look for is whether the invoice has made it to your ERP and what status that the invoice is in. In your ERP, if you have rejected it for whatever reason, then also when we run our duplicate check, we don't consider those invoices that have been made in ERP for all the
Mm.
right? So we only consider invoices that are either paid or work in progress in your ERP. Because if you have rejected in ERP, there's no point. This might be a valid reason why you got that invoice again, right?
One more?
One more. So I'm currently expense audit.
Okay.
With very familiarization with our AP department. We have offices that receive invoices. The invoices come to AP. The offices jump the gun. They pay it on their corporate card. It comes through expense.
Mm.
Will this find the duplicate if we have both expense audit and the AP side?
It sure
See
will.
that it already found that.
Yep, we have a duplicate across expense model that we run for invoices against expense reports, because that is a very common scenario with corporate credit card swipes. And I paid for this just because I didn't know the invoice was going over to AP as well, so on and so forth. So yes, that's absolutely something that we can check.
I have two things. The first one was when it goes to rejected and it sits there like that. So part of this for me would be able to capture the cost that I never have a PO for on my own. So if I'm capturing it there, but I never see that we actually received the invoice, I would continue to capture it because it was rejected. If it doesn't tell me we ever got it. So how would I be able to know that?
How-
If I'm running a report saying, hey, I have these invoices, right? We didn't process them because we didn't have a PO. I didn't have a receiver. I couldn't do anything with them. But I'm trying to make sure we get all of our costs in the period that it belongs in, which is the problem that we have. But I would need to know that eventually that was received and processed.
Sure. So I think that goes back to what.
Would I make a rule that just says, hey, we're going to continue to process this, which is what we do now. We do
Yeah.
send an email back to the vendor that says, hey, you didn't give me a PO number, I'm not processing this, which is a lie. We continue to process it, but I tell them
I like that. So in your case, that's where the DIY comes in, and this is exactly what we're talking about on standard operating procedure. Your procedure is not to reject it and not send it back to the vendor. It's to send an email to the vendor, but approve it and just tell them that you didn't, right? So you could make it, instead of rejecting it, you can approve it and push it through.
So then we go to the branch and say, hey, we need a PO, y'all didn't do one. But because we still need it as process. But I tell
Right.
the vendor I'm not going to pay you and I'm not processing your stuff and it's dead in the water and have fun with that.
So you can add those additional criteria on exactly what emails you want to go out, what steps, instead of rejecting, you're approving it. And then, because of course, create reports on any of the information that you need.
And then I had a question, which I didn't ask last time, on the card audit, which was basically that, was when the card audit's going through, will it notify you in that if they're swiping it for a vendor immediately?
Hold that thought. Let's talk afterwards, because there's card audit is a whole different scenario, and I can walk you through everything that you need to know on that.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So I know we only have about couple minutes left, and I really wanted to make sure that we got to this one, because this is super exciting for me, especially because the majority of you are in here are expense audit customers, right? Now, I think I'm going to get a hand raised from everybody. How many times has someone submitted an expense report that said something like miscellaneous and it was actually dinner? All right. So we've actually we're in the process of creating a model that will identify when an expense comes in. So you can see this one got flagged, or they put the expense type as incidentals, right? But we could look at this receipt and be like, oh, okay, you incidentally drank too much. So in this case, we know we've created a model that's going to be able to identify whether or not the receipt actually matches the expense type that was associated to the expense report. So if someone submits airfare and puts it on miscellaneous or something along those lines, we're now going to be able to help you create that rule over here and send them a response. So you can see over here, when an expense is received, and if the expense type is travel, And if the receipt expense type is not travel, then assign the request to the expense submitter and send an email. So you can again, I'm not going to walk through every single drop down over here, but you can see that you're then again going to be able to say, hey, learn how to code your expense report appropriately, please, and then reject the expense report or something along those lines. So you'll have that opportunity now, and I'm really excited about that because I'm pretty sure everyone here has probably asked, can you help us with getting our employees to put the right expense types on them? Yeah.
So if they have an expense line item that is found to be negligent in some way or not approved, does it kick back just that line item out of the report, or does it kick back the entire report?
The entire report.
Okay.
Right, but you can always use the feature of request more information instead of rejecting it. So if you have that line item, you don't want to reject the whole report and you just want to request more information from them and their manager, you can create an automation for that.
We kind of want to break the bad behavior.
Yeah, no, I get it.
There's one line in there that's wrong, the whole report goes back.
Yep. And if you guys don't mind, I want to show the card audit one as well, just because this one's really nice. As we've been discussing card audit, these transactions are coming in before it possibly hits an expense report, right? So we're seeing all of the transactions just like you would see them in your corporate credit card feed in Concur, but maybe they haven't put it onto a report yet. So you see all of those transactions, and you see, like in this case, you see over here it has level 3 data, and we can look at that data and we could see, oh, there's a mini bar charge. You know, oh, there's cigarettes over here, all right? So even before they put it onto an expense report, AppZen is aware of it now. And so what do? Well, we send them a simple note saying, hey, when the card is ingested and it contains level 3 data and it has a personal lineup on it, we can send them an email saying, we noticed that you purchased something that you shouldn't have. Please make sure to mark that, bless you. Please make sure to mark this as personal when you submit your expense report. And you could also copy their manager so they're aware that they're buying cigarettes with a corporate credit card. So everyone, thank you so much today. I know that we did Q&A throughout the entire session and we're just about out of time, but I do want to thank everyone so much for your engagement. I'm going to be out here by the booth for the rest of the day along with my counterpart, Katie. I know that I have some people that want to come see card audit, want to come see accounts payable. Don't hesitate to come over to me and just chit chat. I'm happy to be here and take care of all of you. Thank you so much.